everybody. I am Jessie Skibby. I'm a principal security strategist at AWS. And if you're here, you found your way here, hopefully you learned something about building psychological safety within your security team. So how many people out there, I know we just have a few, but are you on a security team? Do you lead a security team? Yay! And so especially, I think this is a really relevant topic, and it's really something that I hope we dive into, because right now there's so much changing with AI, agentic AI, generative AI, all the things that are going on right now where our security teams have to keep up. And so not only do we have to be innovative, we have to understand how the cloud works, we have to be security experts, and we have to learn everything about generative AI and agentic AI. And it's a great time to be an innovator, but it's also a time that can be really high pressure for builders on your team. So today we're going to talk about what is psychological safety, why is it important to you, and why should you focus on this in your team. I'm actually going to give you some practical implementation strategies. And so I have led fairly large security teams at AWS and prior to AWS, and I'm going to share some of my personal experience, mistakes that I've made and how I've learned from them. We're going to talk about what it is and also what it's not, and how to measure it on your team with some questions and some ways to know if you have it or if you don't have it. And like I said, some actionable next steps where I hope you take it away and actually can build more psychological safety within your teams. And so what it is defined, actually there's a couple of links that I have for you at the end of my presentation, but where I personally first learned about psychological safety was a book by author Amy Edmondson. She first coined the phrase psychological safety in her 2018 book, The Fearless Organization. And so this is a definition that she defines. It's a shared belief within a team or organization where members feel safe to take interpersonal risks without fear or negative consequences. And in my own words, I would describe it as you feel safe in your team environment to show up as yourself, to express your opinions, and to also disagree. You feel safe to learn. And so this is why it's important. And so it's a foundation for driving culture of security and innovation. And this is part of our culture of security track that we have here at reInvent. And so hopefully you'll see a lot of different themed topics where we talk about ways that we build a culture of security within AWS, and also ways that can help you make sure you have the right culture of security within your own organization. And so security specifically, though, we have to be able to see something, say something. You have to be able to speak up in a high-stakes environment. Thinking about things like how do you respond quickly to an incident, even if you notice an incident, say something, sharing risks and concerns. Amy actually uses a really great example in her book in the medical field, where something like a nurse sees a doctor getting ready to give a patient the wrong medication. In an environment where you don't feel psychologically safe, that nurse is not going to say anything because she feels that there may be repercussions on her. So think about that same topic in our technology teams. If we're getting ready to deploy something and a developer knows there's a flaw in the code, or we know there's a known vulnerability and the security team member is too afraid to speak up, that is not the kind of environment that you want your builders to live in. And the other thing, like I mentioned in the beginning of the talk, about right now is a time where security teams should be thinking about ways to use generative AI and AI technologies to create efficiencies within your own team. But if you don't have a psychological safe environment, people are going to be afraid to speak up and share their innovative ideas. And I truly believe that the best innovative ideas come from exactly where the work is performed. But if we don't feel comfortable saying, hey, I have a really great use case for AI in the particular task that I'm doing, we will miss, as leaders, we will miss out on opportunities to create more innovation. And so the team members need to feel first and foremost included, safe to learn, safe to contribute, and safe to challenge the status quo. And I love this number 4, because I've led very large teams, and I love nothing more than when someone we have a leadership principle at Amazon called disagree and commit. And so somebody coming to you and able to challenge you as a leader, saying, this is why I feel this is incorrect. If that's not happening, if everyone's agreeing with you in your team, you know that you may not have a psychologically safe environment, because people should feel comfortable to challenge when they believe that there's a better way and they have data to back that up. All right. So, kind of an overview here, but in a psychologically safe workplace, team members trust each other. They have different perspectives that they feel welcomed and valued for. Mistakes are viewed as learning opportunities. This is so key, especially when we want to work in an innovative environment. We want to foster this safe to experiment environment where people can bring ideas, experiment with them safely. And I'm talking specifically about AI or other types of automation that you want to incorporate. Being able to feel comfortable knowing that it's a two-way door decision. If you make a mistake, you can come back from it and then learn from that. And then people must feel or know that they're not going to be punished or humiliated for speaking up. This is really important. And hopefully that's not the case in your environment. I actually delivered this same topic or similar topic at our Reinforce event this year, and I had people come up to me afterwards and say, Jessie, what can I do? I am a team member on the team, and I don't feel like I'm in a psychologically safe environment. What can I do as a member of the team? And so I'm actually going to give you some tips at the end on things you can do to help build that. First and foremost is awareness of what psychological safety is, how to measure it, do you have it, do you not have it, and then what can you actually do about it. And so I really like this pyramid here of the 4 phases, because I think this builds upon the foundation of inclusion. And we talk about inclusion, like, what does that mean? You feel part of the team, you feel comfortable showing up as yourself. And so it builds from there, right? You can't get to challenge your safety if people don't feel included on the team. And so feeling included and accepted is a basic human need to belong. I mean, we all have that. You want to feel like you are valued on the team, that you belong on the team, that your voice is important, because if you don't feel that, then your true value as a team member is not being experienced. And this goes for everyone, whether you are introverted and don't like to speak up, kind of like me, believe it or not, or you communicate in different ways, right? These are all things where humans just want to feel that sense of belonging. And so from there, you build from that. And learner safety is so important, especially right now in security, because of everything that's happening with AI. Think of everything we're releasing here at reInvent. Like, people have to feel safe to ask questions and safe to learn. Feeling comfortable with your own knowledge and skill set and being able to ask questions as a learner. Like, you have to foster that environment on your team so people feel they're not going to be made fun of, or they're not going to be judged because they don't understand, they have to learn. And safe to contribute, obviously it builds from, yes, you feel like you belong on the team, you've got the safety to learn, and then that leads into contribution. And so here's where I believe a lot of the innovative power of this comes into play, because if you've got a great idea, but you don't feel like you belong, or you don't feel like you have learner safety, you're not going to share that idea. And so it really builds upon itself. And challenger safety being the absolute highest level on the psychological safety pyramid. And now this has to be done right. Like, the thing that we don't want to do is having people speaking in an incorrect way and challenging you just openly, but being able to feel that you have the sense of value on the team and that your opinion matters creates that environment we're looking for. And so I really like this diagram as well. Actually, Tim Clark wrote another psychological, he wrote The Fearless Organization. I'm going to give you a link to his book at the end too, but this is something that Tim Clark talks about in his book, and I really like it because I think we've maybe all been in work environments that are similar to this. So if we have psychological safety going from low to high, and then we have accountability going from left to right, we see that if there's no accountability on the team and then no psychological safety, you're kind of in this apathy zone where you go with the flow, you don't say anything, you don't rock the boat. I mean, this could be someone who is just totally disengaged. They don't feel like they're a part of something. But if you move up, so if you have low accountability but high psychological safety, that means everyone really likes each other. They all get along really great, but nothing gets done. Nothing gets done because you don't have the accountability that goes along with the psychological safety, right? So the ideal zone is to be up in that far right-hand corner because that's where learning is happening. You've got high levels of psychological safety. You've got a super collaborative environment where people really enjoy working together. They're safe to disagree with each other, challenge each other in the right way, but getting to the right outcome because they have accountability. And so I think we can also look at the bottom right and say if you don't have psychological safety but you have high accountability, meaning you are pushed to deliver results or deliver impact without psychological safety, you can have builders living in a very anxious zone, right? They're worried about their job, they don't feel like they belong, they're not necessarily innovating because they don't feel safe to share. And so the anxiety zone, I think we've all maybe been in work environments where you felt pressure to deliver, but you didn't feel safe to contribute. So hopefully this is helpful. So how to measure this? So we've given some examples and we've talked through what to do and what not to do. Actually, let me go through all these. And so Tim Edmondson in his book Amy Edmondson talked about creating, and I think it's actually on her website. So when I give you the link here in a little bit, you can check it out because I know at Amazon we do a lot of like daily surveys, like, you know, how are you experiencing your work environment? And so one way to get a measurement is to ask these questions, right? So asking these questions to the people on the team. If you make a mistake on this team, it's often held against you. So like scale of 1 to 5 is a good way of measuring this, meaning 5, I always feel like if I make a mistake, it's going to be held against me. Members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. So you can read all these or take a photo, whatever works for you. But this is one way that you can get feedback from team members to start to see where you might have a problem. Obviously anonymous because you want people to feel safe to answer these, but it is one way that you can actually measure how you're doing. So if you're a team lead or a leader within your organization, this is something that you can take away. If you are not in a position of leadership and you feel you might have a psychological safety issue on your team, you could very gently present some of these ideas to your manager or to leadership and say, let's see where we're at. I know it's a more difficult conversation, but I think everyone has the potential of being a leader on your team, and hopefully you feel safe to bring it up. So actionable next steps. And so I wrote this thinking that the majority of people that would really be deeply interested in this topic would be in a leadership position in their security team, really caring about creating the right culture for their builders. And so one of the things that I personally have done in my role is not only framing mistakes that other people make as a learning opportunity, but also sharing my own mistakes. Like having the vulnerability to share, I made a mistake and here's how I am learning from it and how we're going to scale beyond this. Absolutely the best thing that you can do because it shows people that it's a safe environment to admit that you made a mistake. Mistakes are nothing more than learning opportunities. And so that's part of you as a leader being vulnerable enough to share those types of mistakes helps other people feel comfortable doing the same. So again, we actually have a process at Amazon we call the COE process, the correction of errors process. And I absolutely love it because when something happens, we have a way of doing the 5 whys and diving into the issue, but the culture around it is no blame, right? We're not blaming anyone. We're not looking for someone to blame. We're looking for ways that we can prevent that issue from ever happening again. And so in the entire process of how do we interview, how do we dive through the 5 whys, we're never looking for a single individual to blame. And so that's another great mechanism that you can use to make sure that people look at those errors like learning opportunities. All right, again, so things that you can do, actionable next steps. You can encourage open communication about threats and vulnerabilities, specifically on your security team. Create structured channels for inputs. I know I mentioned that, to be a truly inclusive environment where people feel that they belong, as a leader, you sometimes may need to look for other ways to communicate. If people don't feel comfortable raising their hand in a public meeting, giving them a way to respond with email or with text, different ways of communicating to bring in more of that inclusive voice. And then celebrate issues that are communicated to make sure they understand and they feel part of the process. All right. Oh, I think I already talked about this earlier, but modeling that vulnerability yourself as a leader. And I think this is true also if you're not the leader of the security team, but you are a leader on the security team or any team that might be applicable to you. If it feels safe to you and you can be a model for someone else, you can talk about an issue or an error that you made as a learning opportunity and just see what changes in the culture. All right. So again, this quote from Amy Edmondson, which is basically one of the founders of this term and has done such a deep amount of research on this. She says psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes, and that the team is safe to take interpersonal risks. So with that, I do want to leave you with these resources. I talked about Amy Edmondson, her book, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. It is a well-researched book. She is well known for her deep research in this space. And then The Fearless Organization is the Tim Clark book. That one I really liked as well because it's a lot of good tips about how psychological safety leads to innovation. And so we're all, I'm assuming, in a technical field where innovation is really important. So looking at psychological safety as a foundation for innovation. And then the last one there, just when I was doing my research for this session, I found it really helpful. I mean, because I think sometimes we don't have the best resources and tools that are immediately actionable. I loved that Psychology Today article. So I put that on here for you. So, all right, well, thank you all so much for joining. And I hope you took something away that you can implement within your own team. Thank you so much.